All right, let's dive right into Kenya's electoral system. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how your vote gives you the power to shape the entire nation.
But before we get into all the rules and the nitty-gritty, let's start with a really big, fundamental question. Where does a government's power actually come from?
And the answer? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but it is incredibly powerful. All that sovereign power, that's the ultimate authority to govern, it belongs to you, the people. A government is only legitimate because you, the citizens, give it the permission to rule. Okay, so for this first part, we're really going to dig into the why behind all of this. Why your participation, your voice expressed through your vote, is the absolute bedrock of the entire democratic system. And look, this isn't just some nice idea. It's a fundamental right written directly into the Constitution of Kenya. It's even recognized all over the world. This principle makes sure that the government's right to lead comes directly from you.
So if all that power rests with you, what does that actually mean? What's your specific role in this whole democratic process? Let's take a look.
You know, the Constitution is really clear about your part in this, and it's so much more than just showing up to vote. It's about being informed, it's about actively participating, and just as importantly, it's about protecting the peace and integrity of the process for everyone. And of course, a huge first step is actually getting registered to vote. It's basically your ticket to the game. And the requirements are pretty straightforward. You've got to be an adult citizen with an ID or a passport, be of sound mind, and you can't have been convicted of an election offense in the last 5 years. Okay, so now for the exciting part. How do all those votes actually turn into winners? Let's break it down into 3 different ways a candidate or a party can win an election here in Kenya. First up, we have what's called an absolute majority. And believe me, this one sets a really high bar. It's mainly used for the presidential election, and the reason is to make sure the winner has a super strong, clear mandate for more than half of all voters. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. Just take a look at this example. Even though candidate A has way more votes than anyone else, they didn't cross that magical 50% plus 1 line. So what happens? No winner. Yet, it triggers a second election, a runoff, just between the top 2, A and D. All right, method number 2 is way more straightforward. It's called plurality, but you've probably heard it called first past the post. The rule here is simple. You just have to get more votes than anybody else. This is the system used for members of the National Assembly, the Senate, and county assemblies. And this example shows it perfectly. Candidate B is the winner, plain and simple. They don't have a majority of the total votes cast, but it doesn't matter. In this system, having the most votes makes you the winner. That's all it takes. Now, this third way to win, it's a little different. It's not really about one person winning one specific race. This is all about making sure our elected bodies, like Parliament, actually reflect the country's diverse political views, and that smaller groups and minorities get a voice. And this system has some really important rules built right in to promote inclusion. For example, the lists that parties submit for these special seats have to alternate between men and women. It's a mechanism designed to improve gender balance and also to make sure youth and persons with disabilities are represented. So here's the big takeaway, right? Kenya doesn't just stick to one system. It's a clever mix of all 3. Each one is used for a different type of election for a very specific reason, whether it's to create a strong presidency or a more representative parliament. Now, obviously, you can't have a system this important without a solid set of rules to make sure everything is fair and square. There's a whole legal framework that acts as the official rulebook for the game. And right at the top, the absolute foundation of it all, is the Constitution. You can think of it as the master blueprint. It's what gives you the right to vote in the first place and lays down the most important principles for the whole system. And if the Constitution is the blueprint, then the Elections Act is the detailed instruction manual. This is where you find all the specifics, everything from how you register to vote, how candidates get nominated, and even how disputes are settled after the election. So, who are the referees in this game? That's the job of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or the IEBC. The Constitution set it up to be the independent, impartial body that runs and supervises every election. And these are the core principles that everyone, especially the IBC, has to follow. They're laid out right in Article 81 of the Constitution. They guarantee things we all expect, like a secret ballot, free and fair elections, and making sure every single vote carries equal weight. But here's something really important to remember. Your power as a citizen doesn't just end the minute you leave the polling station. It's not a one-day event. It's actually an ongoing responsibility. The Constitution actually gives you tools to hold leaders accountable long after the election is over. Chapter 6, for instance, lays out principles on leadership and integrity. And candidates have to submit self-declaration forms about their background, giving you a clearer picture of who you're voting for. And this next one, this is a really powerful tool for accountability: the power of recall. That's right. If a member of parliament breaks the law, misuses public money, or just violates your trust, you, as the electorate, have the constitutional right to remove them from office.
So when you put it all together, from the big ideas about where power comes from to the nitty-gritty rules of the game and your power to hold leaders accountable, the entire system is built to put the ultimate authority right where it belongs, in your hands. Understanding it is the first step. The next and most important question is, how will you use it?